7:30, so that's a good sign. Really appreciate everyone clocking in early or clocking in on time for our meeting today. We got a busy one, so we'll kick it off. My name's Joe. Today we're going to go over, all the normal stuff we do in the beginning of our Orange County chapter of the California Society for Healthcare Engineering meeting. We are recording, so you'll be able to, if you miss anything or step away from coffee, be able to get this later on in the members section of the website. We have guests today from Lean FM. They're going to go over leading trends for healthcare operations post-COVID. So a really great presentation ready for us, one of our partner vendors. Then we have our normal industry update, member update, and then we'll get into some exciting stuff about our upcoming meetings. So Calvin, I'll turn it over to you for a minute.
Morning, everyone. We decided to do something a little bit different moving forward. We wanted to make sure that we're celebrating and thanking all of our gold and silver sponsors. So now we are going to put all of them on our presentation. So we just wanted to have a couple slides again to say thank you. We couldn't do this without our gold and silver sponsors. So we will be putting these out on a monthly basis in our presentations. And I believe next, Joe, you have a couple updates.
Also, just wanted to make sure we emphasize the Sishi state leadership a little bit. So we had a meeting or an election just a couple months ago. So we have a different board makeup. You could see all of our members up there make the Sishi meetings possible. They coordinate all of the activities that we have going on from a state level and all of the investments that we have to actually continue the education and the facilities that really Sishi manages. So a big organization, lots of things happening in the background, and just wanted to make sure that they were acknowledged. And we actually have one member here, Santiago, in our own chapter. And then here I'll allow us to introduce ourselves. So Andrini, I'll let you start.
Good morning. My name is Andrini Lalapua. I'm the chapter secretary. I'm here, the account executive for Costco Healthcare, Costco Fire Protection Healthcare Division. And I do EC in general in EC 020305. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Calvin Fakama. I'm your chapter vice president. I work at Chalk Children's. I am the director of safety, security, and emergency management.
And I'm Joe. I'm the chapter president. I'm the director of facilities, EH&S and EM at UCI Health. So we manage everything at the chapter level here in Orange County, which is the best chapter. I don't know if you know, but if there's other chapters, they're second and third. We're number one. So at the state update, we just wanted to remind everyone that, besides new leadership, one of the things being coordinated at the state level is the annual institute. And had like 2 years of not having an institute. So what that's allowed us to do is get some really great education lined up. It's going to be at Squaw Creek, June 1st through the 3rd. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know that we're planning or finalizing the plans for like a golf tournament and all those activities. So more information is going to come probably before the end of this month. Really excited to do this. It's been just a really long time since we've done anything in person or anything like this. So we're really excited to actually, do it this time. I don't know how else to set the bar other than we actually get to go. So that's really exciting. Andrini or Calvin, anything that we want to bring up from the local chapter update level?
I think we just have a couple updates at the end.
Yeah, just at the end.
Okay.
Joe. Fine.
Easy enough. I think the only thing we also emphasize is just register for Sishi. We always enjoy guests coming for 1 or 2 meetings, but if you find this useful, you like the information, you like the peers that you were going to be able to rub elbows with soon, please register to become a member or renew your membership, and all that can be done on sishi.org. The other thing that we'd like to bring up this meeting is the Robert Mack Scholarship Foundation. So next month, the applications are due. If you're not aware, I guess I should go over, the Sishi board in 1983 discussed the addition of scholarship fund for those seeking education in the, or to better, their professional development in the engineering skills, or those areas that CSHE emphasizes, like biomedical engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical, construction, architecture, and anything that facilitates the healthcare field that we oversee, the environment of care. If you're pursuing anything towards those goals, if you know people who are, the scholarship fund has, since its inception in 1984 till 2016, given over nearly 100 scholarships totaling over $175,000. So it's not an insignificant amount of money. And a lot of us are pursuing those types of degrees or certifications or things like that. So check out this website. I know that they're working on making that a little bit more concise. This will take you to the most up-to-date website. If you actually type in robertmacksf.org, it takes you to the old one. So this is the website that you'll want to go to. And when we pass this out or make this presentation available, you just hit this link and it'll take you there. But important to apply before the deadline. Go to that applications page and you can check it out. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our presenters today. So Mike, I'm going to, let's see, and you're still the only one on from your team, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
sorry,
Jeff.
just wanted to double check. So Mike from Lean FM Technologies has a presentation on leading trends for healthcare operations post-COVID. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. If you can close screen.
Stop.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Georgione, CEO of Lean FM Technologies based out of Pittsburgh. Wonderful to be with you. We've been members of ASHE and CSHE for the past year and a half, and Newbury is our marketing manager. And wonderful to be with you today. I am based in San Diego, although on the road right today for today's presentation. Thank you, Andrini, again for inviting us, including us in your event with the #1 chapter. And Joe, thank you for the leadership you bring to your #1 chapter. In focusing on what a leading trend is in post-COVID operations, specifically in hospitals, I'm going to lead a discussion on this overused term called the Internet of Things, or data. Specifically, I'm going to talk about, again, another overused term, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and what we do and how we think it helps decision-making in the field. Just like today's presentation, where we're all virtual, we've learned to use data, trust data, understand technology a little bit better to do our jobs. I'm going to take that trend and focus on it today. If it's one thing I learned in 30 years in the Navy as an officer and in consulting and business now, is to be very interactive with your audience. So although we're virtual, and although I can't see you all, I do ask for your help in being very interactive with the questions I ask. Otherwise, I'll call on people to generate a bit of interest and engagement with the topic today. Lean FM was established out of Carnegie Mellon University by Pine Liu and Dr. Burju Kinja. Burju is still on staff at Carnegie Mellon. Pine is full-time with the company as the Chief Technology Officer. They are in the world of HVAC fault detection, or automated fault detection diagnostics. Again, I'm your presenter today, and Annette Newbury in Carlsbad, California, leads our business development team. Lean FM, lean manufacturing, Lean Six Sigma, it speaks to being more optimal and efficient in how we do things. FM refers to facilities management. The icon in our logo is a 3D image of a building with reflection to the south. To the horizontal axis is the representation of a digital twin, another part of artificial intelligence I'll explain later. So again, I appreciate the time with you today. Okay, we're going to focus on the biggest energy use in most vertical buildings. And because we principally work in hospitals, that's why we've joined ASHE and CSHE to work with healthcare engineering. We're going to focus on HVAC. And principally documented by the Department of Energy as a leading waste of energy in most buildings, HVAC, lighting, plug load. The developers, the co-founders, the CTO did all their studies and theses on HVAC fault detection. So first question, how many of you principally work with HVAC in your many either specific maintenance duties or one of your many maintenance duties in healthcare engineering? Is there anyone that works with HVAC?
I know a lot of us do. I might
Okay,
have a shy group just starting out, but yeah,
Okay.
a lot of us do.
okay. Good.
The
And you'll
company does
appreciate-
for sure. I don't individually and personally, but I know we do. So definitely interesting. Yes.
And is it one of your biggest concerns in a hospital period, let alone
Absolutely.
with issues of indoor air quality and what you've had to do over the past 2 years? Okay,
Especially the past 2 years, but absolutely. Yes. Air quality is
Thank you,
always a
Karen.
concern. Sure.
thank you, Karen. And for others, has your leadership understood how important HVAC is, and have they done anything unique to support you in maybe looking at new ways to recommission or be more efficient or use fault detection or other types of systems? Anyone?
We have, yeah, we're using a little, not as extensive as we'd like to, but we've gotten started.
Okay. History of physical asset maintenance. I was a Navy Civil Engineer Corps officer, so for 30 years I did what many of you do: take care of facilities, Navy and Marine Corps bases around the world, from conception and our environmental permitting to planning, all the way through demolition and disposal if necessary. And light history of maintenance standards through the years, from reactive, which really I think we all still do a lot of today. We'd like to be preventive, and that's why we have preventive maintenance programs and recurring maintenance checks. And sometimes we outsource those services to vendors. Sometimes we do some critical things that we want to control in-house. And we got fancy with these things called asset condition management, where you make decisions based on when something should be checked in more of a periodic checkup. Reliability centered. Let's really understand our facilities. In the military, we called it critical care facilities. What really needs to be checked more often? Where are we going to lean towards where our greatest risk is? And then really all of you have probably worked with many of this at any one time. And then this thing of called Internet of Things. And that's the last time I'll say that term, but it's really about using data. How can we be smarter as leaders, engineers, managers, financial consultants? How do we be smart about how to use data and trust it? This is typically what we hear. I don't have time to deal with it. You already have a number of systems probably in your buildings, not just control HVAC, but also monitor building access and many other things. And if your staff isn't well trained or isn't taught how to use it, what happens? Folks, what happens?
Gonna fail.
It's going to fail because why? What happens?
Something breaks.
Right, but if we don't train and talk to our maintenance people or actually describe the scope of our service contract, what do men and women tend to do in the field if they don't understand the technology or you haven't trained them? I've seen this, you've seen it. They ignore it. They turn it off, they bypass it, they turn off the alarm, they shut it down. I have found a great challenge in bringing data and technology to the maintenance world. It's not my comfort level. I'm too busy. I got enough going on. Oh, we just did OSI soft, and I don't understand the new work order system, and I can't possibly do something else. And that's all legitimate, but I feel that as leaders, we haven't done a good job of teaching people the why we do things and how the data is not going to replace you. It's going to allow you to make better informed decisions. Why is this critical, this specific area of automated fault detection? Well, it has a bit to do with your Joint Commission accreditation. When you get to HVAC and all the ASHRAE standards you have to comply with, it might have a lot to do with greenhouse gas reporting in California, or depending where you are in the whole country, city and state requirements. There might be tax benefits to that. Most patients may have a choice. If you want to run a great facility, like taking your kids to a college campus, what really impresses them? The dorms and the cafeteria, it's about the facilities. I think patients want to have that comfort level as well when they come to your patient care rooms and know that they're not going to have hot and cold air cycling in their face all day, or they'll be taken care of, not just with a great staff of doctors and nurses and clinicians, but also a dependable, comfortable facility. And of course, being lean, being more efficient allows you to reduce costs and run a more affordable operation. That's one reason, several reasons why automated fault detection can be critical to your operation. Evolution of artificial intelligence. What the heck does that mean? It scares people. What does that really mean? Why is it called artificial, ladies and gentlemen?
It's man-made. I don't know. Because we created them.
Right. It's not intent. The artificial is, what are we trying to replicate when we say artificial intelligence? We're trying to replicate the human brain. We're trying to replicate the way our neural network receives data. Think of all your senses and all the things you've learned in life, all the biases we create, and all the things we store in there, and how we think various things and how they make connections. We're trying to replicate the biological neural network into an artificial neural network called artificial intelligence. That's why it's artificial. That's why it scares people. It's not a black box. It's not magic. There is programming behind this. And through the years, early on, we had things that are traditional programming. We had if-then statements, rule-based. We are specifically in this area of using machine learning, not rule-based networks, to understand what's going on in your HVAC systems. We're trying to get to, humans are, to predictive analysis. It's the theory of driverless cars. You could program a lot of things into the car's computer about if-then statements to have a no driver. But what really benefits that technology is that the car learns in all the different scenarios and all the different weathers and locations and road conditions and accidents and unforeseens. It predicts before it happens. That's where artificial intelligence wants to go. That's what we're trying to do with predictive analysis and machine learning. I use this term rule-based and machine learning. Have any of you, or who's somewhat knowledgeable about rule-based learning? When I was in graduate school in engineering in the 80s, it was called expert systems. I had a friend designing an expert system for trenching. If the trench was over 3 feet deep, you needed this. If it was this kind of soil, you needed this. If it had a water table, you had to do this. You had to do this kind of trenching, this kind of wall, a shore wall. All if-then statements. It was good stuff back then. But as technology has developed to where you're going from a deterministic approach, we're trying to predict. Again, that's what artificial machine learning really is. On the right is a replication of the human brain, those synapses I talked about, those neural networks. We don't want to scare people. We want data to help them. Little history. Machine learning, a lot of it started at Carnegie Mellon University, coincidentally in the late 70s, 80s. It was called chip test. IBM got intrigued, bought into it. They renamed it Deep Thought. Deep Thought was the computer programming, which also became Deep Blue, that took on Garry Kasparov of the Soviet Union in chess matches. And although the computer didn't win every match, what was being taught, what was being discovered is that the more experiences, relationships the computer was exposed to, it continues to develop its algorithms for efficient evaluation of what's called continuations. So pawn to queen's 4 is a typical opening move in chess. But the computer knew that there's probably many permutations of that if you went pawn to king's 4, and then what the next move and the next move and the next move. And it predicted all of that and was able to defeat a human chess master. IBM Watson, another example of machine learning, storing a library of knowledge. In healthcare, In 2016 to 17, Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City loaded 700,000 electronic health records into a machine learning program called Deep Patient. This is a basic topology of what they did. In the middle, you see that human brain I keep talking about, that neural network. You have inputs, you have outputs. Well, what's going on in the middle is what the computer and machine learning algorithms are doing. Some of the results of this 700,000 electronic health records, which no humans could go to in an efficient amount of time, within months, it predicted some interesting things and accurate predictions with patient diabetes, schizophrenia, and various types of cancer. In your profession of healthcare, patient care, this is an example of using technology for goodness. Okay, it's not another gaming app. It's not another thing to meet someone. This is about supporting the patients better by using technology, finding those unforeseen, undiscovered relationships between various inputs and newly discovered outputs. Any questions or comments so far? Machine learning, neural networks, trying to replicate the human brain.
Hey, good morning. This is Carson Hubert with Next Level EMS.
Hi, Carson.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Sorry, I was trying to come off mute earlier. I do have a background in AI a little bit from college. I was wondering, so you're talking about a lot about predictive algorithms, but I'm kind of wondering if you've implemented anything that was just a little bit more, looking at understanding the situation. So rather than jumping straight to giving predictions, just, doing an analysis to then, let humans do the predicting or implementing of the information you found.
Yep, and I will thank you, Carson. And let me correct. We are not predicting anything quite yet. I don't know that anyone's quite there. What I'm going to show you is what we've discovered by using a digital twin and machine learning. We get to the root cause of the fault. So that's what's really going on, Carson, and that's what informs the maintenance staff of what to go fix. Because you can quantify it by energy waste if there's a cost associated. You can quantify it by a recurring maintenance problem you've had. And we can tell you what's wrong with that valve or damper or coating. So we are not quite predicting yet. If you're very intuitive with trend analysis, you could say, well, I'm on the path to predictive analysis. But we're very much with showing you what the faults are at the root cause. No false alarms. Okay, this is all based on the laws of thermodynamics, the control logic of the building automation system, and all the sensor data and what's really going on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any others? Again, deep thought, deep blue, deep patience, some of the examples of machine learning in the commercial and healthcare world. Have any of you or
The other,
go ahead.
sorry, Michael, I was going to say the other thing I come across is in cancer research and in research in general, of course, with all the mass amounts of data that they have to go through for certain protocols and specifically for cocktails. So my background is on the healthcare side, specifically healthcare IT. And so we use a lot of examples of how IBM Watson or other AI programs can do research on specific cocktails and outcomes for patients in hours versus it takes a peer review group to do that in weeks or months. So definitely it's advantageous.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Made my day. Someone who understands it and used what I just said. I didn't invent it. I'm reporting on it and sharing it with you and using it as the basis for this research for the fault detection. But again, it's trusted, credible data, folks. It's not a black box. You don't make this stuff up. This is not a guess. This is data. No, humans have the right always to interpret the data and make a decision. And sometimes when we tell a healthcare engineer what's going on in a various room, why it's always over 80 degrees and cycling, he or she may say, well, here's the reason why. And there's some things we don't know, like they were constructing it or there was a breakdown, the doors were always open. Okay, that's helpful. There still has to be an interpersonal dialogue with leadership. But it's using data to inform the decision making. It's not blindly trusting it. touched earlier about the introduction of Lean FM, but again, 5 areas of possible benefit and opportunities for savings. And it's not just saving energy. Certainly that's part of it, but you're saving labor costs. Now that's a little more intuitive, but you have to trust. If my staff isn't out there troubleshooting that darn AHU again on the 3rd deck of the 5th building, but I can tell them the damper's stuck again, or this is what's drifting, then that saves labor. Makes our staff more motivated. They'll feel more appreciated that this stuff actually works. You're going to have a more efficient operation of your system. Again, we get into that indoor air quality. Great HVAC always has good indoor air quality. It got a lot more attention during COVID times, of course. Maybe you did some more things with different filtering or different sensors or different checking. Safety and comfort foremost for our patients and our staff. Sustainability, some of you have to meet sustainability goals. When you save energy from fossil fuel sources, you can say there's a greenhouse gas emission reduction and CO2 reduction, and I'm able to get some credit for that. Okay. Have any of you, or are any of you, using fault detection in your building? And fault detection is not the building automation system features, because there are alarm features which work fine. It's fault detection is a layer through an API that goes on top of the BAS. Joe?
Yep,
Are any
we
of
have it
you-
in a few facilities.
You do? Okay, so you have someone, and you have is it reading your building automation system control logic? Do you know how it works, what it tells
In
you?
some places, or we're planning to on that level, but in other areas, it's just monitoring specific equipment, so to speak.
Okay. And did you decide what specific equipment you wanted to monitor was most critical to you, kind of reliability center maintenance philosophy, or was
I
it what the
inherited a
vendor-
program, but it's something that's done very well through that. Yeah. Priority-based analysis.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Anyone else using fault detection, or have you explored the idea of fault detection? "44 participants and just Joe? It's a little more about leadership, decision-making. What are some of the downsides of people who wait for too much data?
Analysis paralysis.
Right, and why are people worried, Karen? Why do they allow themselves or their team to fall into this paralysis? Is there a
But-
fear?
Yeah, they're typically afraid of making a mistake or jumping on information that they're not, don't know how to use.
Okay, and that's reasonable, but as opposed to the person who is more of a knee-jerk reaction person, right?
Correct.
So I've always been a big believer in the Pareto principle of statistics, the 80-20 rule. Doesn't apply to everything in life, but a lot of things I've learned. 80-20, usually good enough for me. I'm going to have a pretty good sense. If I have 80% of credible data and 80% of the input from 80% of my best people who are truly engaged and committed to the mission, we're probably going to get it right, and we can keep moving because time is important. So I've learned when we try to work with building engineers, energy managers, hospital administrators of engineering facilities, and their teams get a little antsy about this fault detection, I learn a lot about their leadership engagement and how they make decisions. And there can be the good old way, which has worked for many years. But I think for many who are looking to the future and looking at an aging workforce where we may not get those apprentice HVAC technicians anymore, or we may have to rely on outsourcing the services, I think the ones that get it understand that data is not an enemy. Data should not be feared. It's a way to complement your decision making. You have to understand it. You have to be a good critical thinker. You have to have those crucial conversations with your team, your client, but to use data smartly, not to blindly trust it. Any other observations or stories to share about what you've seen about decision making in your leadership team and your industry?
I know a lot of times it's hard for us to advocate for some of these more back-end programs when a new MRI machine or a new clinic is being funded. So having a really airtight case on how this benefits us is really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We don't never want to, well, just trust it because that's not business. That's not leadership. You have to explain the why and show it and demonstrate it. Let me briefly show you what Lean FM does. Again, we are not a rule-based system. We are a machine learning system. So we have to work with the building automation system. We have to connect to it. We have to see the drawings, architectural drawing and mechanical system, because we do the cross-check to make sure everything's labeled the same. Because if the control logic in your building automation system says it's an RTU7 and you've got it labeled something else in your drawing, we're gonna have a problem with bad data. So we have to rectify that. That's some manual work. But once we're connected through an compressed and encrypted code through an IP address, we pull the data from your building automation system and all the sensors. We don't install any hardware. We don't do any control. We're not controlling your system. We're going to pull that into the cloud, compute it on a dedicated server, send it back to your system, share it on the front end, on a user interface with you. The genius is in the middle. This is what's patented, is that digital twinning that's been created. You create something called a digital twin that replicates what's going on in the control logic and all the connections and sensors, so that we can, that's where we do all the manipulation and development of the algorithms and the library rules. We can learn in 1 week pretty good data on what's going on in your system just in 1 week. But ideally, of course, you go through months and years, and it's gone through different occupancy loading and weather loading and other changes. That's where you continually learn about the building. Okay. Just like having a heart monitor. You may be good today, you may have a problem next week. You don't know it unless you're monitoring it. This is what you can almost call this continuous commissioning. This is what the digital twinning does for us. And from that, we create a library, either 3D in a BIM model, color-coded, or tabular of the root cause. And here's the key benefit of machine learning. We are identifying the root cause of what's going on in a software or hardware fault. It's going to tell you the asset location, the timing. There are a bunch of fancy graphs behind this. Those of you that have seen the BAS alarms and other sensitive graphs and other things that show you it and document it by minute intervals. But in a tabular feature, there's the root cause. And if there's an energy waste associated with it, we can calculate that based on your actual energy costs, not estimates, your actual energy costs. So that's the earlier question, Candace, about the Carson, about the, we're not quite predicting it. You could see if you did this enough, you could start to understand your system better. But this is going to, what do I really need to fix and prioritize? You can't fix all the faults, but you can certainly prioritize them.
Mike, I got a quick question on that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Would the software be able to prioritize and say, you know, if we're going to correct this item, it's going to solve all these, you know, child relationships, you know, so you're not going out and fixing a belt when it's actually the motor, or you're not adjusting the room temperature because it's actually the equipment that's failed and not like a damper or something. Does it prioritize that so our maintenance mechanic doesn't get all these alarms? Rather, it pinpoints the issue for them?
Yeah. Here's what happens, Joe. We share these data to a client as we're starting to work with them in a hospital. And they want to drill down into, okay, what's this unnecessary fresh air damper open, or a recycled heating and cooling? So we show them the graphs behind it. We show them the relationship between all the things, the pressure, the temperature, the humidity, and we have a conversation. And we say it's this, but then we show them why the root cause, why this is really the root cause. And then we allow them to see all the other variables that are going into this root cause analysis. I think from that conversation, which is important to have, they build the trust that, okay, now I understand this really is the problem. I'm not fixing the wrong thing. The other very obvious thing is you got to measure it still. So some of you have good metering, some of you have no metering, some of you only meter true water, some of you don't meter steam, some of you only see an energy bill. It's going to be very hard to really test it that way. That's why the energy calculation is all built on your actual commodity rates and the laws of thermodynamics. There's no guessing here. Okay, we want to use the data to help you. Many feel what we've learned on the front end is it's too much data. So we've learned as the vendor, I think probably our colleagues as well, is to create the KPI reports, Joe. So we tell you what, in this building, these 3 air handlers are causing most of your problems. Is where most of the faults are, the longest durations, the highest energy costs. Go work on these 3. And let's just monitor the rest. So we've realized to use the data and not overwhelm you is to help you reduce it to KPIs, key performance indicators, and pie charts or charts, and just tell you to help you what to prioritize.
Thank you.
Sir. So again, I'll wrap up before we get to open discussion. I've really focused on this trend. I think really it's pre-COVID, but certainly post-COVID, we get a lot more attention by doing remote things and learning to use data. Something we were already working on, this evolution of artificial intelligence, using machine learning, not the rule-based systems anymore, trying to get towards that predictive way of being more human-like in our learning and using the data to inform our decision-making. So that's my focus today on behalf of Lean FM Technologies. And I'd like to open up any discussion before I turn it back to Joe. Any questions, comments, pushback, doubts, curiosities about learning data, using data in your operations?
Michael, so do you find that your clients are interested but unable to install or use your systems? Or what's the biggest thing that's prohibiting them from using this type of technology?
The
Money,
sales
cost, time, understanding?
No, the cost, honestly, the cost has never been an issue. It's about, as you know, most clients will take that first call. To get to the second and third call, they're starting to evaluate, okay, do I have the time to dedicate some person's time to work with you on this? I got to bring the IT staff in early. I got to make sure that IT staff knows we can onboard you and you're going to pass our protocols. Absolutely. Most have to realize they can commit to it and that they really understand data and want to use it. We typically go through a 2-month pilot project, sample building at first, and then it converts to the SaaS contract, software as a service. I've only had 1 client out of 10 decide they just didn't have the time or they weren't seeing the value and fall off. It's during the early vetting, Karen, I can see clients deciding whether they want to commit to it or whether they can convince their staffs to use this. So I learned a lot about the organization's leadership and whether you control the maintenance staff or not, and whether they're a separate function or not. So that's the reality.
Yeah, I could see that the hesitance being, I think it was Joe who said, or somebody else who said, you know, I have to have $1 million deficit or something in my budget. I have to buy an MRI machine, or, you know, we have EMR costs or something's wrong with the, you know, facility. So investing in the technology for this, while there is to pay off in the long term, the initial upfront cost could be challenging. But I think if they understand that you'll be saving them money in the long run, right? That's helpful, but oftentimes hospitals don't even have the ability to do that, right? Because they're at a deficit. So just wondering what, you know, challenges you have to overcome.
Yeah. Some people call it a capital expenditure. I don't think it is. I think it's the maintenance expenditure. It depends on how your CFO has you structured. Yeah. But the payback is not long. The payback is months, folks, months. There's a deployment cost, and then there's a price per square foot per month. That's the subscription. Pays back in months, so it really becomes part of your maintenance program, I think.
Yeah, to me, I find most hospitals find it easier to have the capital expense as CFOs like that rather than adding it to the operating expense, because that's always typically the larger number depending upon what they're doing, unless they're implementing Epic.
Good point. You know, I know some of the managers have discretionary budgets. They have some, so you learn that about your client.
Yep.
Learn, are you going to be easy to work with? Do you really want this? Is this nice to have? Don't treat this as a nice to have. Then I don't want to waste our time, don't waste your time. There's enough vetting that goes on that pretty much the clients that use it, or they're dedicated to it, and they see the value.
Well, and I had a question on, you had I think your last slide was like the 2030, predictive stuff really. And are you estimating that the timeline for having something that's more automative and something that's reading the data and actually making decisions, is that in the coming decade, you think?
Again, this is to the whole industry of AI, Joe.
Yeah.
So it's also driverless cars and other things that are being invented in the world. But,
Sure,
I
sure.
guess it's possible. We're not putting any more R&D into this yet. We're learning currently from what our current client base is and how it's working. If we already go to the next step, we would try to be more predictive. That's certainly where we want to go. We call our platform prescriptive, so we're leaning that way. But we've come a long way from pencil and paper to analysis to rule-based to expert systems, now to machine learning.
Well, it's exciting thinking what might be, in the near future, kind of like the driverless car thing, a lot less errors if it's being continually monitored by a
Right.
really smart robot. So I know it might be just around the corner, but it's exciting to think about.
Yeah. Think about if you use Google Maps, how it's changed over the years to where it starts to tell you things like, go through this light and at the next light. That's all because of machine learning, all this huge data, this library of data. And then it's able to use, give it to you as a decision making, and you may decide I'm going to turn here because I know the area better. Fine, and then it adjusts to what you did. So another example of machine learning in action.
This is really fun and really exciting stuff. I hope all the facility members really take it in, because I think this is going to be the next kind of turn for our little slice of the industry here in the critical airflow and HVAC area. So thanks so much, Mike. And
thank you, Joe. Folks, there's our contact info. If you'd like to at least have a conversation about the yeah, but Mike, please call me. Please email me. Your chapter has our contact info. Thank you, Joe and Andrini, for the opportunity. I'll stop sharing here. And thank you, folks, for what you do to take care of our hospital systems and our people.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And as mentioned, your information is on our presentation, and that's going to be on the CSHE website member portal after the meeting.
Thank you.
So we're going to jump into the industry update. Calvin, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Sure, just a couple things from me, and then I'll hand it back to Joe. And you can find these in those health facility emails that come out. One of them is about company Vyaire is warning hospitals of a ventilator malfunction. They've sent an alert to their customers to immediately disable a setting in their Bella Vista 1000, 1000E ventilators that can cause the ventilators to stop working. While it works on a software update, they wanted to make sure that they advise their customers on how to follow certain instructions to provide those corrections and to disable the HL7 data communication if activated. The second portion is the ASHI Academy is offering intensive learning courses. It's going to be held in Nashville, Tennessee, May 2 through 6. It's just a great event for you to kind of customize your learning experience and learn from others in the fields, as well as continuously getting education credits. And also you can always network and problem solve with your peers. Next slide. So as I mentioned last meeting, Project First Line through ASHI Teach is putting out videos. This month's video was basics on portable HEPA filters. It's a great little YouTube video if you want to share it with your frontline staff. And the second article is about California Medical Center that installed a microgrid in response to rolling blackouts and record-setting adverse weather events. It's a 1 megawatt, or it's a microgrid and solar project that consists of 1 megawatt hour energy storage system combined with 425 kilowatts of solar capacity and a new and permanent backup generator. So great article if you're interested to learn more about that. Joe?
Thanks, Calvin. I think everyone's probably heard by this point. It's almost like old news, but it's probably more relevant than ever. HHS launched a new portal on their website for cybersecurity, resiliency, and planning tools for healthcare operations. Just yesterday, I saw, this actually wasn't at the update, but part of the Ukraine-Russia thing, they're anticipating a real uptick in cyber attacks, and one of those sectors is healthcare. The other ones that they're looking at is energy and water. So I don't know about you, but those are pretty important. So probably want to keep an eye on that, maybe check out this new portal, but something to work in concert with your ITIS partners. Also, CMS continues to review needs for waivers and flexes issued in response to COVID, but they have basically said that they're restricting or limiting the approval for new temporary hospital facilities as they feel the program's no longer necessary. So just another click away and you can read more about that. I think we went over this last meeting, but the Joint Commission's EC 251, EP 14, and EP 6 are going to be active or now active January 1st. So the more comprehensive standards are prescriptive on your water management requirements and programs for your facility. So those are now in effect. And if you're like me, expecting Joint Commission in the next few days, you're going to have it looked at probably pretty extensively. The next is generator battery inspection requirements. So this is another hot item that Joint Commission is finding, because it's one of those things that not many organizations, it's a tripping area where many organizations have found to not be doing. A great article on HFM magazine regarding the different types of checks needed for the different types of batteries. So if you think that there's just one checklist, there's not, there's like 40, unfortunately. So this article does a good job of outlining what checks you need to do for your generator batteries. Next, our favorite government organization, the EPA, is restricting the use of certain hydrofluorocarbons. These ones are found primarily in clean agent fire extinguishers, like I know a lot of us have in our operating rooms and other IT areas and things like that. If you have these, you're probably going to want to double check and make sure they haven't been phased out, or you're going to have hazardous materials in your facility, which is something we could probably deal with for a limited capacity, but you're going to have a really hard time replacing them. ASHI is recommending that you reach out to suppliers who use these or make these extinguishers to see if they're impacted, and also if the price of this is going to go up. So not only is it probably going to be phased out, but the price of the actual extinguisher itself is going to be dramatically increased. And speaking of the EPA Clean Med, 2022 is going to be held in Kansas City, May 10th through 12th. So Clean Med is an organization that basically puts together hospital facility managers and sustainability and energy managers into one, kind of like the ASHI annual, but for sustainability. And if you are interested, I'm thinking of maybe going this year. It is going to be in Kansas City, so less restrictive there. You're able to do in-person meetings and learn about sustainability initiatives. And that's our industry updates. Andrini, I usually turn it over to you for this portion.
Yes, Joe, thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We have 39 members joining us today, and I just want to remind you, we have, as CSHI, we have 867 members strong. So thank you for your participation, for your loyalty, I guess, after 2 years not being in person meeting, but you are still paying your membership due. So we do appreciate that, again, with gold and silver sponsorship. And if you are a new member or this is your first time logging in with us, like, I learned a lot in healthcare education. I got leads, referral, friends. I haven't got an enemy yet so far, so I think that I know of. So this is a great, great organization that I think we will grow together. We learn something new together. So and a lot of social events. So, and networking, right? So that's all we want. So, and if you're affiliate, I do encourage you. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Beth actually just sent it to me. It's actually going to be, oh, total membership right now today, it's 920. So yay, almost 1,000. So we want to make it 1,000 a year, right? So if you're affiliate members and I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. And then it's only $50 for facility people. So if you are having a meeting with your facility, hospital people, and please like tell them like, hey, do you know anything about sushi? Like we can sponsor them. And then again, it's like $50. I think like to get to pay $50 for all of the meetings that you get, it's like so beneficial. And you can all this recording meetings and the presentation is uploaded for the members only on the website. So you can always go back to it. You know, you can always review it, send it out, you know, and it seems that it's gonna make you better, like as a person, right? And then you can tell your boss, like, I know about this, I know about that, you know, it's just gonna make you looks better at least. So our upcoming meeting is in March 23rd. It's going to be an afternoon meeting, but it's going to be an exciting meeting with Stephen Call. He's a professor from, I believe, the Washington University, right, Joe?
Yeah.
And so he's going to talk about exciting. I didn't even look up his topic again.
Hospital facility cost benchmarking. So it was one of the presentations, one of our other chapters gave, I think, a month or two ago, and a really interesting, really great presentation from a really smart individual who really dove deep into, you know, how hospital facilities, the many different types of them, how we can really get a benchmark or a playing field that's level for costing. You know, how much does this facility cost versus another? It's probably a question a lot of us get, and it's kind of hard to answer, but this group and this gentleman has taken a lot of time to research that topic, and it was a really impactful presentation. So really excited to get that for our group here.
And that will be our last, right? I mean, I don't know.
Hopefully, you know, knock on wood.
Yeah,
every time we
knock on
say
wood.
that, it's like there's another wave coming. So
yeah, that's gonna be our last Zoom meeting. Hopefully for the entire year. Hopefully we don't have any spike. Another pandemic, right? So, and then in April we're going to have a social event and an in-person event. We already have a speaker for that. But going through May until November, we usually don't have meeting in December, that we will need you to participate. So if you have any interesting presentation, or even if you just want to, as a facility, sharing best practice, and if you don't want to talk, we could just have Joe talk, but you need to send him your best practice or Calvin, right? So we can have it, you know, interesting, but yeah, so there's that. So I really need your help. And then if you're a facility member and you want to know more about this, please reach out to me. I put my email address on the chat, and I will get the vendor. Let's say you want to talk about HVAC or cleaning or fire or, you know, walls, floors, like I can find the vendor to present about that. And our next also big event, like, you know, the annual is on June 1st to 3rd. And we will also have the golf tournament for Sishi, Orange County. Yay, it's going to be June 28th. So cross your fingers. Everybody that is the leadership will sign all the documents and we can make it that happen. And I would like to thank you, Travis from Chalk, for his passion and all his hard work to make this happen. So I know we will have a June 1st to 3rd at Squaw Valley. But if you're not going there, or if you just from SoCal, I think you should just gather your foursome now, you know? So yeah, and please follow up with them, right? I know you're going to ask them now, hey, you know, can you join us on the foursome? And then, you know, sometimes the facility told me, like, I have 3 people ask me, I don't know which one that I said yes to, and really. Can you please help me? I was like, and then I look at it in their spreadsheet. So please make sure, like, remind them, I don't know, send the invitation, put it in their calendar so they know, like, oh, okay, I'm going with Andrini, I'm going with Calvin or something like that. So that's it. So hopefully upcoming meetings is more exciting than this, but I really appreciate your joining in with us today. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Andrini. No, it's many lessons learned from hosting now a couple of the golf tournaments. And yeah, I think that's the big one is sometimes people don't know who they signed up with. But we're just really excited to host it again. And Travis, really appreciate all the hard work. He's the tournament chair this year. There he is. Wow. Thanks, Travis. And really looking forward to doing that again. That's actually one thing our chapter's really been successful at each year, and want to continue that this year and maybe do a couple other fun things like who knows what. But we can open it up for roundtable unless anyone has anything else they want to bring up. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Like Andrini said, we're hoping to kick the Zoom bucket here pretty soon. We have one more Zoom meeting just because the guys from Washington didn't want to make him fly down. But after that, we're going to be in person. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let us know if you have any ideas for in-person meeting locations or topics. If you want to sponsor a meeting, whatever. We're open to ideas because we haven't done it in a while, so we'll be rusty. But we appreciate everyone's time and look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.